Something sweet in your kitchen is already harming you, and you're using it every day. Across the UK, fake sugar brands are replacing real sugar, using heavy processing, cost-cutting methods, and misleading labels that have been repeatedly flagged by experts and consumers. I spent weeks investigating how these sugars are made, where they're sourced, and why some cost pennies less, but affect your body far more. The evidence explains rising blood sugar spikes, energy crashes, and stronger cravings linked to certain ultra-refined sugars. In this video, I'm exposing 12 fake UK sugar brands you must avoid, and I'll also show you 3 genuinely better sugar brands that don't cut the same corners. And by the end, you'll know exactly how to spot a good sugar brand for yourself, because number 1 is in almost every UK home. Brand to avoid 12, Tesco Everyday Value. White granulated sugar. This is the sugar almost everyone starts with. It's cheap, familiar, and sitting on the lowest shelf of nearly every UK supermarket. Labelled simply as white granulated sugar, it raises no suspicion. There are no warning signs, no bold claims, just a basic product people trust because it feels timeless and unchanged. Parents bake with it, people stir it into tea and coffee every day, and because it's sold under trusted supermarket names, most shoppers assume it's safe by default. After all, sugar is sugar, right? What most people don't realise is how aggressively this sugar is refined. To keep prices as low as possible, it's processed at extreme temperatures, stripped repeatedly, and crystallised purely for shelf life, brightness, and uniformity, not quality. During this process, every naturally occurring mineral is removed, leaving behind a product that delivers sweetness instantly and hits the bloodstream just as fast. Industry investigations into sugar refining show a clear pattern. The cheaper the sugar, the harsher the processing. That's how supermarkets protect margins. Consumers frequently report sharper sweetness, quicker energy crashes, and a hollow aftertaste compared to less refined sugars. And that isn't subjective. It's the result of how the sugar is engineered. This isn't sugar in its traditional form. It's a highly refined carbohydrate designed to dissolve instantly and spike blood glucose rapidly. Because UK labelling laws don't require brands to disclose how refined a sugar is, most people never realise what they're actually buying. The consequences show up quietly. Faster blood sugar spikes, stronger insulin responses, short bursts of energy followed by sudden crashes that trigger cravings. Many people reduce calories but keep this sugar, then wonder why they still feel worse. Because the issue isn't just quantity, it's the type. It's not illegal, it isn't banned, but it's far from harmless. And it's the foundation of many diets without anyone stopping to question it. And if this everyday sugar surprised you, wait until you hear the "it's next," because that one looks premium, costs more, and may actually be worse. Brand to avoid. 11. Silver Spoon Granulated Sugar. This sugar often looks like an upgrade. It's not the cheapest option on the shelf. It's neatly packaged, and it sometimes hints at being selected or carefully sourced. Many shoppers pick it thinking they're avoiding the lowest quality sugar without paying premium prices. What the packaging doesn't clearly state is that this sugar is frequently imported in bulk, refined abroad, and simply repackaged for UK sale. Its country of origin is often buried in small print or replaced with vague terms that give the impression of local standards without confirming them. The reason these sugars are cheaper is straightforward. Bulk imported sugar is refined at massive industrial scales where speed and volume matter more than quality. The refining process is aggressive, designed to produce uniform crystals quickly, not preserve any natural characteristics of the cane or beet. By the time it reaches UK shelves, it's already been stripped, bleached, and recrystallized multiple times. Consumers have reported that this sugar dissolves unnaturally fast and leaves a harsher sweetness in hot drinks. That's because the crystal structure has been altered to maximize solubility, which also leads to quicker absorption in the body. The result is sharper blood sugar rises and faster drops in energy. There's also a transparency issue. UK regulations allow brands to list "packed in the UK" prominently, even when the sugar itself was refined elsewhere under very different standards. Most shoppers never realise they're buying an imported industrial product dressed up as a domestic staple. The cost difference may only be a few pence, but the trade-off is a sugar designed for manufacturing efficiency, not human consumption patterns. Over time, using this as your daily sugar can intensify cravings and make moderation harder than it needs to be. And if this sounded concerning, don't relax yet. Brand to avoid 10. Billington's White Granulated Sugar. This is the sugar that reassures shoppers with one simple word: pure. It's often labeled as 100% pure white cane sugar, placed slightly higher on the shelf and priced just enough above budget options to feel like a safer, more responsible choice. Most people assume pure means closer to nature. In reality, it often means the opposite. To achieve that bright white color and uniform crystal size, this sugar goes through intensive multi-stage refining. Any remaining molasses, minerals, or natural compounds are stripped away completely. What's left is a product engineered for consistency, not nutrition or balance. Investigations into cane sugar processing show that purity, in this context, refers to chemical uniformity, not quality. The sugar is repeatedly filtered, heated, and recrystallized until nothing remains but isolated sucrose. That's why it looks so clean, and why it behaves so aggressively in the body. People frequently notice that this sugar tastes sharper and sweeter than expected, even in small amounts. That's because its crystal structure dissolves extremely fast, leading to rapid glucose absorption. The result is a quick energy lift followed by a noticeable drop, especially when consumed in drinks. What makes this brand especially misleading is the marketing. Words like natural, pure, and traditional are used without explaining the processing involved. UK labeling rules don't require brands to disclose refining intensity, so shoppers never see how far removed this sugar is from its source. The cost is usually only slightly higher than budget sugar, which makes it feel like a smart compromise. But in practice, you're paying more for a sugar that's often refined even more aggressively to meet visual and taste expectations. Used daily, this kind of sugar trains your body to expect rapid sweetness hits, increasing cravings and making it harder to cut back without discomfort. And if you think pure was misleading, the next takes deception even further. Brand to avoid 9. Tesco brown sugar, Asda brown sugar. This sugar is often chosen by people trying to make a better decision. It's labeled as brown sugar, sometimes even described as natural or rich in flavor, and it gives the impression that it's closer to its original form than white sugar. In reality, many of these products aren't naturally brown at all. What's actually being sold is refined white sugar, with molasses added back in after processing. The sugar is first stripped down completely, then colored and flavored to recreate the appearance of traditional brown sugar. This shortcut is cheaper, faster, and far easier to standardize at scale. The problem is that once sugar has been fully refined, adding molasses back doesn't restore what was lost during processing. The mineral content is minimal, and the way the sugar behaves in the body remains much closer to white sugar than people realize. Consumers often notice that these sugars clump unpredictably, dissolve unevenly, or taste strangely sharp for a brown product. That inconsistency is a direct result of the blending process. It's engineered to look authentic, not to function like traditional brown sugar. Pricing plays a big role in the deception. These blends are often only slightly more expensive than white sugar, encouraging shoppers to feel like they've upgraded without understanding what they're buying. The packaging rarely explains that the product is essentially reconstructed sugar. Used regularly, this kind of sugar can cause the same rapid blood sugar spikes and crashes as white sugar, while giving consumers a false sense of security. People think they've made a healthier swap when, functionally, they haven't. After seeing how many everyday sugars are stripped, reconstructed, or aggressively refined, the obvious question becomes simple: what should you use instead? This is where traditional unrefined cane sugar stands apart. Better sugar option. 3. Traditional unrefined cane sugar. Unlike ultra-refined white or reconstructed brown sugars, unrefined cane sugar goes through far fewer processing stages. The cane juice is evaporated and crystallized without being completely stripped and rebuilt. That means small amounts of naturally occurring minerals remain, and the crystal structure stays closer to its original form. What this changes in practice is how the sugar behaves. It dissolves more slowly, tastes less sharp, and doesn't hit the bloodstream with the same intensity as heavily refined sugar. Many people notice steadier energy and fewer cravings when switching, even without reducing how much sugar they use. Another key difference is transparency. Reputable, unrefined cane sugar brands are usually clear about sourcing and processing because they don't need to hide it. There's no vague language about purity or careful selection. The simplicity is the selling point. Cost-wise, it's slightly more expensive, but not dramatically. And that price difference reflects fewer industrial shortcuts, not marketing hype. You're paying for a product that hasn't been pushed to its chemical limits for the sake of shelf appeal. This isn't about pretending sugar is healthy. It's about choosing a version that's less engineered, less aggressive, and easier on the body when used in moderation. Now that you've seen what a better option looks like, it becomes much easier to spot the next group of fake sugars, because the contrast is impossible to ignore. Brand to avoid 8. Silver spoon. Golden granulated sugar. This sugar is designed to feel reassuring the moment you see it. The warm color, the word golden, and rustic-style packaging all suggest something closer to nature. Many people switch to it believing they've left harsh white sugar behind and chosen a gentler, more traditional option. The reality is far less comforting. In many cases, this sugar starts life the same way as standard white sugar. It's heavily refined, stripped down, and processed for uniformity. Only later is a small amount of syrup or coloring introduced to give it that golden appearance. The color signals less processed, but the structure of the sugar tells a different story. What matters most is not how sugar looks, but how it's been treated. With these products, the refining steps remain aggressive, and the final sugar behaves almost identically to white sugar once consumed. It dissolves quickly, absorbs rapidly, and causes sharp rises in blood glucose. Consumers often notice that despite the warmer taste, the effects feel the same. Quick sweetness, followed by a sudden drop in energy. That's because the body responds to the chemical structure, not the marketing. The language on the packaging is usually carefully chosen. Words like golden, natural color, or traditional are used without explaining what actually makes the sugar different. UK labeling allows this kind of implication without requiring proof of gentler processing. Price plays another psychological role. These sugars are usually positioned just above white sugar, encouraging people to believe they've made a meaningful upgrade. In practice, they're often paying more for appearance, not substance. This kind of sugar thrives on visual reassurance. It looks safer, feels warmer, and sounds better, while delivering many of the same metabolic effects as the products people were trying to escape. Brand to avoid 7. Tate and Lyle Demerara style sugar. This sugar is often seen as a step up. The larger crystals, deeper color, and slightly caramelized taste give it an old-fashioned, almost artisanal feel. Many people choose it believing it's closer to how sugar used to be made, less processed, more authentic, and therefore safer. That assumption is exactly what keeps it popular. While true traditional Demerara sugar is only lightly refined, many mass-market versions sold today are Demerara style, not genuinely Demerara. The distinction matters. These products are often produced by fully refining the sugar first, then altering crystal size, and adding back just enough molasses to mimic the look and flavor of the real thing. The result is a sugar that looks rustic but behaves industrially. Because the base sugar has already been stripped and rebuilt, its absorption rate remains high. It dissolves quickly, spikes blood sugar sharply, and delivers the same rapid hit of sweetness as white sugar, despite its darker color and coarser texture. Consumers frequently report that it feels heavier or more indulgent, leading them to use less. But that perceived richness doesn't change how the body processes it. In hot drinks, the large crystals often dissolve unevenly, encouraging people to stir longer or add more, unintentionally increasing intake. Packaging rarely explains whether the sugar is truly minimally refined or simply styled to look that way. Phrases like natural crystals or rich flavor are used instead of clear processing details. UK regulations don't require brands to make that distinction obvious. This sugar benefits from nostalgia. It looks like something your grandparents might have used, which creates trust. But in many cases, it's a modern industrial product wearing a traditional disguise. And that disconnect between appearance and reality is what makes it so misleading, especially for people actively trying to make better choices. Better sugar option. 2. Organic unrefined cane. Sugar. After seeing how darker colors and rustic crystals are often used as visual misdirection, it becomes clear that appearance alone can't be trusted. This is where organic unrefined cane sugar earns its place as a genuinely better option. What separates this sugar from most supermarket alternatives is how little it's interfered with. The cane juice is evaporated and crystallized without being aggressively stripped and rebuilt, allowing it to keep more of its original structure instead of being engineered purely for speed, brightness, or uniformity. Before we move on, if this kind of breakdown is helping you make better choices, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. These investigations take time, and it helps more people see information most brands would rather keep quiet. The organic certification matters here. It doesn't magically make sugar healthy, but it does place limits on processing aids, bleaching methods, and sourcing shortcuts. Brands that meet organic standards are required to be far more transparent about how their sugar is produced. In practical terms, this sugar dissolves more slowly and tastes less sharp. Many people describe it as rounder and less aggressive, which often leads to naturally using slightly less without trying. The body responds more gradually compared to ultra-refined sugars that hit all at once. Another key difference is consistency. Instead of reconstructed crystals designed to look a certain way, unrefined cane sugar behaves predictably in cooking and drinks. That stability reflects fewer industrial interventions, not clever marketing. It usually costs a bit more, but that price reflects restraint rather than excess. Fewer refining stages, fewer shortcuts, and fewer surprises. You're not paying for color, nostalgia, or vague promises. You're paying for simplicity. And once you know what real restraint looks like, spotting the next fake sugars becomes much easier. Brand to avoid 6. Silver spoon. Caster sugar. This sugar is often presented as a smarter, more refined choice. It's marketed as caster sugar, sometimes positioned as ideal for baking, desserts, or even hot drinks because it dissolves faster and blends more smoothly. Many people assume that if professionals use it, it must be better quality. In reality, the very feature that makes this sugar appealing is also what makes it problematic. Caster sugar is produced by taking fully refined white sugar and milling it into much finer crystals. That smaller crystal size increases surface area, which means it dissolves almost instantly, not just in cakes, but in your body as well. The refining process is already aggressive, and the extra milling pushes it even further toward rapid absorption. Because it dissolves so quickly, it delivers a sharper glucose hit than regular granulated sugar. People often don't notice this because the sweetness feels smooth and controlled in food, but metabolically it behaves more aggressively. This can lead to quicker spikes, followed by energy drops that feel sudden and unexplained. The marketing leans heavily on functionality. Words like perfect, ideal, or professional shift attention away from how the sugar is actually made. There's no requirement for brands to explain that caster sugar is not a different type of sugar, it's simply more processed sugar. Another issue is portion control. Because caster sugar blends so easily, it's easier to use more than intended without noticing. In drinks especially, people tend to add slightly more because there's no gritty resistance and no visual cue that they've gone too far. This sugar isn't dangerous because it's fine. It's misleading because it's familiar, trusted, and marketed as an upgrade, when in reality it's a version of sugar engineered for speed, not balance. And once you see how processing is being sold as precision, the next products become even harder to ignore. Brand to avoid. 5. Dr. Oetker Vanilla Sugar. These sugars are often sold as something fun or creative. Vanilla sugar, cinnamon sugar, caramel-infused sugar. They're marketed as a way to add flavor without adding extra ingredients. Many people use them in baking or hot drinks, believing they're making a small, harmless upgrade. What's rarely highlighted is what these products are built on. Most flavored sugars start with ultra-refined white sugar as the base. The sugar itself has already been stripped down and engineered for fast dissolution. Flavorings are then added, often in very small amounts, to justify a higher price and a more premium image. In many cases, the flavor doesn't come from real spices or natural extracts, but from flavor compounds designed to withstand heat and shelf storage. This allows brands to market novelty without increasing costs, while the sugar underneath remains the lowest quality version available. There's also a perception issue. Because these sugars taste richer or more complex, people tend to underestimate how much they're using. A flavored aroma makes the sweetness feel gentler, encouraging repeated use, even though the metabolic impact remains the same, or worse, due to faster absorption. Labeling often emphasizes the flavor while downplaying the sugar itself. The ingredient list may look short, but that simplicity hides the fact that the core ingredient is still aggressively refined sugar doing most of the work. These products also train taste expectations. Once sweetness is paired with artificial flavor cues, plain foods feel less satisfying. That can lead to increasing dependence on sweetened products just to achieve the same sensory response. Flavored sugars aren't dangerous because of the flavor. They're misleading because they distract from what the sugar actually is and how quickly it hits the body. When sugar becomes entertainment, awareness tends to disappear. Brand to avoid 4. Silver spoon. Half spoon sugar mix. This sugar is sold as a compromise. It's aimed at people who want sweetness but feel guilty about it, combining real sugar with sweeteners and marketing itself as a lighter, more responsible option. The packaging often focuses on calorie reduction, balance, or control. What's rarely explained is how these mixes actually work. Most of these products rely on ultra-refined sugar as the base, combined with high-intensity sweeteners to amplify sweetness while using less sugar by weight. That creates a product that tastes very sweet, hits fast, and confuses the body's normal appetite signals. Because the sweetness is exaggerated, the brain expects a larger energy payoff than it receives. This mismatch has been linked to increased cravings later, particularly for more sweet foods. People often find themselves reaching for snacks sooner, not realizing the sugar mix played a role. There's also a processing issue. These blends are engineered for uniform sweetness, which means the sugar component is refined as aggressively as possible to behave predictably alongside sweeteners. Nothing about the process is gentler, it's simply more controlled. Marketing leans heavily on reassurance. Words like smart, balanced, or reduced imply health without addressing how the product affects blood sugar regulation or appetite over time. UK labeling allows calorie claims to dominate the front of the pack, while the metabolic reality stays hidden. Used occasionally, these products may seem harmless. Used daily, they can train the palate to expect extreme sweetness while still delivering rapid glucose absorption. That combination makes moderation harder, not easier. The danger here isn't excess, it's confusion. A product that feels responsible while quietly undermining the very control it promises. Better sugar option. 1. Minimally processed beet sugar. After seeing how much manipulation goes into smarter sugar products, it helps to step back and look at something far simpler. Minimally processed beet sugar is often overlooked, but when done properly, it avoids many of the shortcuts you've just seen. Unlike heavily refined blends, this sugar goes through fewer processing stages and isn't rebuilt for exaggerated sweetness. The goal is extraction and crystallization, not engineering a specific mouthfeel or metabolic response. When beet sugar is minimally refined, it dissolves at a steadier pace and tastes less sharp than ultra-processed alternatives. That often translates to more predictable energy levels and fewer sudden cravings, especially in drinks. Another advantage is honesty. Reputable beet sugar producers tend to be clearer about sourcing and processing because they're not relying on marketing tricks. There's no need to hide behind calorie math or flavor distractions. Cost is usually comparable to standard sugar, which makes it an easy swap without feeling like a lifestyle overhaul. The difference isn't dramatic, and that's the point. It's sugar that hasn't been pushed to extremes. Once you understand how restraint shows up in processing, it becomes easier to recognize which products are designed to help and which are designed to manipulate. Brand to avoid 3. Tate & Lyle icing sugar. This is the sugar most people never question because it feels like a specialty product. It's used for baking, decorating, dusting desserts, and making icing, so it's often seen as occasional and harmless. Because it's not poured into drinks daily, it rarely raises concern. The problem is how this sugar is made. Icing sugar starts as fully refined white sugar, which is then ground down into an extremely fine powder. To prevent clumping, manufacturers almost always add anti-caking agents such as starches. That means this product isn't just sugar, it's sugar engineered to behave unnaturally. The finer the particle, the faster it's absorbed. Powdered sugar has an enormous surface area compared to granulated sugar, which allows it to dissolve almost instantly in the mouth and in the body. That translates to some of the fastest blood sugar spikes of any sugar product on the shelf. People often underestimate how much they're consuming because it looks light and airy. A small spoonful visually seems insignificant, but by weight, it delivers a rapid and concentrated glucose hit. In baking, it's easy to use far more than intended without realizing it. There's also the issue of additives. Anti-caking agents are rarely mentioned prominently, yet they change how the sugar behaves and how it's digested. The product becomes more about texture control than food quality. Because icing sugar is associated with treats and celebration, it escapes scrutiny. But from a metabolic perspective, it's one of the most aggressive forms of sugar available to consumers. It's not just sweet, it's engineered for instant impact. And once you see how extreme processing can be hidden behind special use, the next sugar becomes even harder to justify. Brand to avoid too, Tate and Lyle cane syrup. This sugar often feels like a smarter alternative. It's sold as liquid sugar, cane syrup, or plant-based syrup, sometimes positioned as more natural or easier to digest because it's already dissolved. Many people switch to it for drinks, baking, or drizzling, believing it's gentler than crystals. What's rarely explained is how these products are made. Most liquid sugars start as highly refined sugar that's dissolved and reheated into syrup form. During this process, the sugar is broken down to behave even more predictably and absorb even faster. The liquid state removes any natural slowing effect that crystals might have during digestion. Because it's already dissolved, this sugar hits the bloodstream extremely quickly. That leads to sharp glucose spikes, followed by rapid drops in energy. People often feel hungry again soon after, even if they've consumed enough calories. Marketing plays a big role in the deception. Words like natural, plant-based, or smooth, energy are used to suggest balance, while the reality is that liquid sugar is one of the most aggressive forms of sugar the body can encounter. Portion control becomes another issue. Liquids are harder to measure accurately, and because the sweetness feels smoother, people tend to use more without realizing it. A drizzle quickly becomes several teaspoons. There's also a psychological effect. Liquid sugar doesn't feel like real sugar in the same way crystals do, which lowers mental barriers and increases frequency of use. That makes it especially problematic in daily routines. This sugar doesn't just sweeten faster, it trains the body to expect sweetness instantly, and that expectation makes everything else feel insufficient. Brand to avoid. 1. Silver spoon. White, granulated sugar. This is the sugar most people never question because it feels familiar. It's the brand many households have used for decades, often passed down through family routines. It's seen as the standard, the reference point for what sugar is supposed to be. That trust is exactly why it's so powerful. Despite its reputation, this sugar is among the most aggressively refined products on the shelf. To meet massive demand and maintain perfect consistency, it's processed repeatedly at high temperatures, filtered, bleached, and crystallized until nothing remains but isolated sucrose. Every natural component that once slowed absorption or added balance is removed. The result is a sugar designed to behave the same way every time, dissolve instantly, taste intensely sweet, and deliver energy fast. From a manufacturing standpoint, that's ideal. From a biological standpoint, it's a problem. Because this sugar is used so frequently, its effects compound quietly. Daily exposure trains the body to expect rapid glucose delivery. Over time, this can lead to stronger insulin responses, quicker energy crashes, and more persistent cravings, even when total sugar intake doesn't seem excessive. What makes this brand especially concerning is how invisible it feels. There's no novelty, no health claim, no obvious red flag. It's simply there, woven into routine so deeply that people stop seeing it as a choice at all. UK regulations don't require brands to explain refining intensity or metabolic impact, so the product remains legally compliant while consumers remain uninformed. Familiarity replaces scrutiny, and tradition replaces evidence. This sugar isn't dangerous because it's new or extreme. It's dangerous because it's normalized, because it's trusted without question, and because it quietly sets the baseline for how sweet everything else must be. Once you understand that, it becomes clear that avoiding bad sugar isn't enough. You need to know how to recognize a good one, no matter the brand name on the packet. How to spot a good sugar brand. At this point, the pattern is clear. The real danger isn't sweetness itself, but how aggressively sugar is processed before it reaches you. Good sugar is minimally interfered with. Fewer refining stages, no rebuilding, no coloring or flavor added back in after everything is stripped away. Ignore marketing words like pure, golden, or traditional. They're often used to replace real information. Better brands are specific about sourcing and processing because they don't need to hide it. If a sugar dissolves instantly, tastes sharply sweet, or looks unnaturally uniform, it's usually been over-engineered. Price is another clue. Extremely cheap sugar almost always means industrial shortcuts, while a slightly higher price usually reflects restraint, not luxury. Ingredient lists should be simple, ideally just sugar, without anti-caking agents or sweetener blends. This isn't about making sugar healthy. It's about choosing the version that's least manipulated and easiest on the body when used in moderation. If this helped you, let me know in the comments which sugar you're using right now. Share this with someone who still thinks all sugar is the same and help them avoid the same traps. And if you want more breakdowns like this, clear, evidence-based, and honest, make sure you're subscribed. Because the more you know what's really in your kitchen, the harder it is for bad products to hide.